Stay ready is the mentality birthed through the trials and triumphs of life as an NFL long snapper. Join me in conversations with teammates, mentors, friends, and family who help me realize that stay ready is so much more. A deeply rooted principle of life in all things faith, family, and football. All right, guys, so massive guest today. I got my beautiful wife, Bree. Most of you guys probably follow her on Instagram and Twitter and Facebook, and she's so awesome. And she's an incredible wife, an amazing, amazing mom. And, this podcast has been kind of a work in progress for a long time, right? You've been like the supporting. 2 years. You've been like the backbone, the rock, the supporter behind the scenes for quite some, probably back since we lived in Indy. I was talking about a podcast. And you were always encouraging me to stay on top of it, be organized, make lists, and drop my notes down. You know, I'm the biggest procrastinator, so of course I didn't always do that, but I always took your critique and your criticism to heart because it means the most from you. And finally we're here, got this thing off the ground and going, and always wanted to have you on here for us to share our journey together, from dating life to breaking up to getting back together, engagement, getting married, and now in the craziness of being parents to a beautiful 13-month-old girl, True. And I'm so grateful for you to be here. And I know that, you have so much to share, and I want, the listeners to get to know you better, and how, use this as a time to share and hopefully inspire and encourage young couples or other married couples out there, or people who are single. Yeah. And so I think, what we're going to do is we're going to do a 2-part series, and this is part 1, and we're going to just touch on, how we met, the good old days of us dating back in Indianapolis, you cheering, me playing for the Colts, the breakup, the craziness that we went through during that phase of our life, and then us coming back together, and we'll cut it off like kind of pre-wedding, right? Mm-hmm. Part 2 will be about marriage and pregnancy and moving around the country for football, and you being an NFL wife and what that's all about, and then being parents. Yes. So tell us a little bit about you. Where are you from? This is like you and I on our first date. I want you to
Well, this is very much out of my comfort zone.
You're doing great.
It's easy for me to just kind of be behind the scenes, like Matt said.
Well,
I do better behind the scenes.
Well, you're upstairs with True while I'm doing this, and I hear you guys playing. I hear her crawling around, getting into stuff. So it's great that we got a great babysitter upstairs, and you're down here with me.
Yeah.
Behind the mic. So where are you from? Start there.
So I'm from born and raised in Evansville, Indiana. I'm 33 years old. I'll be 34 this summer. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Not as old as you, but getting there.
We're both summer babies.
Born and raised in Evansville. My family still lives there. I have the most loving, supportive parents on earth, and they have really taught my brothers and I the real, true meaning of love, and just how to make a marriage work. They just celebrated, I believe, 41 years of marriage.
You better get that right.
So it's a big deal. I feel like now, especially nowadays, that's a huge deal and a huge thing to celebrate. So parents are still in Evansville. I have 2 older brothers, both married. They each have a son and a daughter. So I have 2 nephews and 2 nieces, and that's the greatest thing. It's just being an aunt. So fun. I went to college at Ball State.
Chirp, chirp.
And while in college, at the end of my freshman year, I decided, so I grew up dancing my whole life, competitive dancing, studied dance, all the things. At the end of my freshman year, decided to audition for Indianapolis Colts cheerleaders. Didn't really know what the heck I was getting myself into, but knew I just wanted to continue to pursue dance, and that was the way to do it. It was 45 minutes to an hour away from Ball State, so I figured, well, I can go back and forth while in school, and that's what I did. I made the team my first time trying out, and cheered for 6 years over a 7-year span. So I cheered 5 years, took a year off, and then went back for, came out of retirement, went back for a 6th year. And that's...
And coincidentally, our neighbor Lauren, she went to Ball State with you and cheered with the Colts for you, with you. And did you guys commute together at all?
We did.
Yeah.
So we would, every Tuesday and Thursday, load up the car, drive to practice for 3 to 4 hours, and then swing through Wendy's on the way home to get our chili.
That's not on the Colts
It's not
cheer
on the diet but
plan.
When it's 10:30 at night, we swing by and got cups of chili and chicken nuggets, and then made our way back to Muncie, Indiana.
Well, to praise you guys a little bit, I got to see kind of firsthand, the regiment and the strict program that they had you on for like conditioning and always like working out, and they worked you out pretty hard, probably harder than we worked.
They treated us like athletes, which I'm not going to deny. I mean, we are athletes.
But the standard was very high for you guys, and that's why it's such a classy, highly recognizable brand that the Colts have for the cheerleaders, and so, a lot of respect to you girls for doing what you do because, it's not just about, performing on Sunday. You guys perform and practice like for months before the season even starts.
Oh, yeah.
And then in season, you guys are like grinding
hard.
a couple times a week at least together?
Twice a week for 3 to 4 hours each night. Plus, you're doing appearances all over the state of Indiana.
Yeah.
Plus, you're keeping up with your workout, your hair.
Well, and you're going to school full time.
Everybody that I cheered with was either a full-time student or had a full-time job.
Yeah.
And then this was basically considered a part-time job, cheerleading was. So, I mean, if you can...
You were nonstop during football season.
Yeah, do the math.
Yeah.
We were not sleeping much, but it was literally the coolest experience, and I miss having that
Camaraderie.
that team aspect and the girls and dancing and.
But you have some of the best friends to this day from those teams.
My closest friends now are girls that I cheered with.
Yeah, so that's awesome. So outside of being from Evansville, going to Ball State, being a Pro Bowl cheerleader for the Indianapolis Colts, was there anything else that you enjoyed doing? Any hobbies? Not really?
My current hobbies are being a mom,
Well, yeah.
being a wife.
Which you're awesome. You're crushing it at.
I
All
do
pro
enjoy working out
Yeah.
when I make time, and then I do enjoy and I miss reading. It's hard to like sit down and read a good book when you're chasing a 13-month-old.
You need to stop binge watching Real
gosh.
Housewives of
We don't need to tell everybody
New
that.
Jersey.
That's my guilty pleasure.
She's on like every series. We've gone from OC to Beverly Hills to New York, New Jersey, Salt Lake City.
Yeah, Utah. Mm-hmm.
And
I can thank my friend Sarah for getting me hooked on this.
Oh my goodness. So it's on 24/7.
Yes.
And I'm not going to lie, I kind of watch too every now and then. But that is your guilty pleasure. But,
It is.
So I made the team in Indianapolis in 2012. That was my rookie year. You were already established on the Colts cheer team then. You and I met maybe like my second year there, like 2014-ish, through mutual friends.
Yep.
At the time you were in a relationship, I was just single, and I still pretty vividly remember hearing on the streets that like Bree was single, and that's kind of where the curiosity even went a little bit further about, hey, who's this beautiful young lady? And but at the time, there was no fraternizing between players and cheerleaders, and so that I think definitely discouraged you and I from even having a very surface level relationship. It was so so strict to the point where like you didn't even want to mingle with one another because of breaking rules and all that kind of stuff. And I respect that definitely. There definitely should be rules put in place. But however, I think you and I just had a connection over time, and I was persistent. And you claim to say that you weren't quite attracted to me. I was obnoxious and
your
annoying.
hair was like
and
longer.
See, I have no hair anymore, and the fact that you're saying that I had
like
long hair at one
longer
point was
and,
pretty funny.
you always like tweeted about Taco Bell, and I was like, I don't like Taco Bell, so
I mean, who doesn't like
I don't
Taco
know.
Bell?
You're right. I wasn't necessarily attracted to you physically. However, I'll never forget this. I pulled up to practice one night. I got there early, and you and I had just like were like conversing. It was like nothing going on, but like just, hey, what's up? How are you? Surface level stuff. And I remember I like had I don't know what made me had a bad day. I had a bad day, and I was kind of just in a bad mood, and getting ready to go into practice. And I remember you randomly were like texting me. It was probably just some random conversation, and it was just like making me laugh and like turned my whole day around. And I think from that moment on, it kind of just like softened my heart, and like the window just opened, to like, okay, I mean, this guy, like, you're funny, and like I think that's so important. Now I realize it's like so important to have someone that's gonna make you laugh, and you do. To this day, you still make me laugh every single day.
With my dad noises and the voices I use with
You
True.
dance, you sing, like you're not afraid to just be you.
Maybe occasionally like walk around the house naked. Especially in the middle of the night when I'm running downstairs to go get a bottle for True. Oh, so funny. But that is cool. I do remember those times where like we're kind of, have that innocent kind of little flirtatious stage where we don't quite know each other.
But it wasn't even like, you weren't even like necessarily trying to like hit on me. You were just like you were just funny and making me like laugh, and it was just natural.
Well, I was slow playing the situation.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. I was I knew I was aware of the situation. You just, recently, getting out of a relationship, and, I know that transition is difficult, and, I just wanted to be, a friend, a friendly guy. And it was cool because, looking back on, I think in the moment, we didn't know at the time that, 8 years later, here we are married with a daughter. But I still do remember like seeing you on the field on game days, and like, just kind of being like in awe of you, like, and that's where the crush grew. And, I thought it was really, really cool. And we got to share like some very, very similar aspects of, being with the Indianapolis Colts, right? Playoff games and primetime games, and, just the routine of preparing for the weekend. And you guys were getting up early and going to the stadium, and we had our, pregame routine. And so I think those common, interests that we had, it was really, really cool.
Yeah.
And I do remember, you probably remember this too, like when I spoke about you for the first time, like with my mom and Nan, about, there's this girl, Bree. She's like, I think they came in town for the game. It was the breast cancer awareness game. Your mom is a breast cancer survivor. My Nan is a breast cancer survivor. So that game had a lot of significant importance and emotions going into it. And I think we were at lunch.
We were at Clay Terrace.
Yeah, you were at an appearance.
I was like in a parking lot.
Yeah, you and a couple girls were like at a table signing autographs, and it was like 40 degrees outside.
Maybe 30.
Yeah, it was freezing. And I remember like knowing, maybe we were just texting, and you mentioned you had an appearance, and I'm at lunch pretty close by. And I'm like, you know what? I'm talking about you at lunch to my mom and Nan, and of course they're like, oh, we got to go meet her. I'm like, but we can't go over there. I can't fraternize. I can't socialize with her. And not only that, I didn't want to go there and you like just kind of blow me off either. So I thought the sweet, kind thing to do was to go bring you like a hot coffee or hot chocolate or something from Starbucks. Mm-hmm. So that was my, nice little sweet gesture to bring you over something.
But you didn't, not only for me, you brought it for my teammate. You brought
did
two.
It? Oh, I mean.
There were two. Yeah, it was super sweet.
Okay.
Yeah, it was very nice.
Pat myself on the back a little bit on that one. But I remember that moment, and I think you had me sign like a poster for your mom.
My mom. It was like because you were featured that week on like the game day poster, and it was a breast cancer one, so it was like pink, and it was you on it. So I was like, can you sign this, for my mom? She's a breast cancer survivor.
And I was obviously earning brownie points with that. And because your mom's a huge Colts, your family is. I mean, they're super invested in the Colts because you've been cheering, and, everyone in Indiana is a huge Colts fan. So, I mean,
I'm pretty sure that poster still hangs in her office today, too.
Yeah, I'm sure it does. Needs to be framed and above
The mantle.
the mantle forever. But that was the early stages of us trying to get to know each other. And I think the first time we actually like hung out, like one-on-one, was very casual. I think it had, you guys are a Notre Dame football family, no specific ties to the school, but you're just big fans, right? And I'm a fan of Notre Dame too. Always grew up loving Rudy, and I was number 45, and always wanted to play for the Irish when I was really, really young. But I think there was like a big game on that Saturday. We had a home game, so I didn't have to travel, and I think just invited you over to watch the game for a little bit, and I think you did.
I think I like stopped by for like an hour.
But after a few times of like always
not
following
the first
through,
time, not the first time you asked me.
It was several times, that I was like, hey, let's hang out, or it just didn't work out, or you just simply shot me down just because you were a cheer captain, and you obviously just didn't want to cross the line. You were very respectful and a leader of the team. So after a couple times of like finally getting to hang out one-on-one and casually just hang out and date. I mean, I think there was a point in time where you and I struggled a little bit with like, we can't have anybody find out. There's obviously a connection here, and
yeah, I think it was just a fine line, and I know we were getting towards the end of the football season anyway, so like we had maybe another month left, and so once the season ended, I think it was kind of like, okay, are we gonna either stop hanging out, whatever, or let's date and like see where this is gonna go? And I think or at least I made the decision, like I want to date, and I want to see like if this is even a potential, this is gonna go anywhere. So I think that's when I made the decision. Plus, after cheering for 6 years, I knew my time was kind of coming to an end, and I made the decision to no longer cheer, and then
hung up the boots
and gave our relationship,
which hang in our house now, somewhere.
For true one day.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I think that's when I made the decision to no longer cheer, and then give our relationship just a fair shot of not like trying to, sneak around or hide behind doors. And so we did that for like, we eventually started dating and dated for like a year and a half.
Yeah.
And then that's where things went south.
Yeah.
I remember, so I had gone on a couple mission trips to Haiti and was planning this other one. And I think I invited you to come with maybe a couple friends. We were going again. We were going like once a year. And I said, okay, we're going to go to Haiti. We'd love for you to come. You came with me. We spent like a week there. And
even extended our trip, I think, by
a couple days. We stayed a couple extra days.
Yeah. It was incredible. Yeah.
It was, amazing. And so we get back home, and within like 2 to 3 days, you like got real with me, and you were like, I think you love me more than I love you. And you're like, I'm not being fair to you. Like I basically like you could no longer do this anymore. And I know like you had just finished another season, so you were in off season mode, which for a lot of guys, like off season mode is like you can travel. You probably didn't want to be tied down. We were both still young at the time, and
I was immature.
Well, I mean, looking back, we both were, and in that moment, like, just crushed, because I thought, okay, we dated a year and a half, like, for me, and I feel like for other females, like being with someone that long and things get serious, you're already like thinking like, I'm going to marry this guy. We're going to like live for, all the things. Well,
it was specifically at the time you were working at Lululemon, and they had you display like a vision board, like what does the next year look like, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years. And like, it was like a display, like every employee was like putting it on the wall. It was like, you kind of speak it into existence kind of thing, right?
You speak into existence, and you have to be as specific as possible. So, of course, naturally, I had you and I on there as, like, getting married. Like, not saying we're married, but, like, you basically in my future. And I think that kind of startled you. And
yeah, I think when I sat, because I almost pretty sure that we're just, like, chilling on your bed, watching TV, and you're, like, typing this thing up. And I'm reading it, and I'm like, holy cow, like I'm on her vision board like 10 years down the road, and I'm not even past like us just casually dating and like growing our relationship. And I think the time that we spent in Haiti was like such like a godly experience, and a very peaceful, and we got to just kind of live life like very simple and just enjoy like the finer, simple things in life because there's no TV, no internet.
No
It's
phones.
just sometimes there's no power, sometimes the water is not hot, and you can't flush the toilet a certain amount of time. I mean, just like all the crazy stuff that we take for granted. And I think, you know, that time I got to spend like with the Lord alone, or at the time I think I was spending the time with the Lord, you know, I just felt like God was just telling me to let you go because I wasn't fit for you at the time, you know. And as hard as it was to say, you know, I don't think this is going in the right direction. I mean, looking back, it was like what needed to happen.
Yeah, it was. Looking back, we both know it was the right
Yeah.
thing. But in that moment, like I said, like me coming out of a serious relationship and then we started dating and being together for that long, it's like, I'm ready to marry this guy,
Yeah.
you know?
Well, and we had a good. It was like a pretty good
Yes.
relationship. It wasn't like we were.
No,
you know,
things
yeah.
were great. And so anyway, so like things just came crumbling down on my end. You walked out, and then I think I hadn't really gotten into Lululemon yet. I was kind of like in between jobs. So I had left a really awesome job. You know, I was in my mid-20s, left a job, like a career in HR. I was growing in the company, and I just was commuting an hour each way every day.
Yeah.
Plus, they wanted me to start traveling every week, and I just felt like I was missing out on just being a 26, 27-year-old, just wanting to like live my life. So I ended up leaving that job. So I was basically unemployed. You left, and I just felt like the low of the low.
Yeah.
And I grew up knowing God. I grew up Catholic, so like I went to church every Sunday. I was very involved in church, grew up Catholic schools, all the things. But to like have that deep relationship with the Lord wasn't necessarily there until I think this moment in time. And I think you would agree on your end, but on my end, it really took, that happening.
Yeah.
And I think my hope and my prayer and our conversation moving forward on this podcast is that we can touch, we can motivate, we can encourage. There's someone out there listening that can say like, me too, and see that there's still hope
Yeah.
at the end of their story.
Yeah.
So I was just kind of left, I feel like, just empty-handed. And truth be told, like the only thing really to get me out of bed every day was, this kind of sounds silly, but like I was an aunt. Like I said, I have 2 nephews and 2 nieces, and just knowing that, like, being an aunt, I just like felt like I had to be strong for them, help me get out of bed every day. I would get in the shower and just like blast my worship music and just cry and just pray and just start talking to the Lord. And I think like during that time is when my relationship with God like really, really, really flourished. You don't realize that, you're left with nothing until you're literally left with what felt like nothing.
Yeah. And you're, when we talk about our testimony and our journey together as a couple, your desert season was like maybe a year or 2 before my season. So we broke up in 2016, and a year late, you're going through kind of the dark days of what you were just talking about. And I didn't experience my dark days until like a year later.
Right.
So on my end, at the time I thought it was the right thing to do to end the relationship, go our separate ways. By no means we never really cut contact off. We still kept in touch, but the walls were built up quite a bit on your end as far as not trusting me and all that kind of stuff. And so we kind of went back and forth for a little while, and then there was just that time, like a 6 to 8 month maybe time frame where like maybe you and I just didn't communicate very much at all.
I was finally able to cut the ties.
Yeah. So, well, you play such an important role in my life at this point because, like I said, my dark days are coming and I just didn't know it. I'll never forget this, but it was, spring. We just started back up with football, and you had invited me to go to church one Sunday morning. And I think I just convinced you, hey, why don't you go to church with me, and to where I went at the time. So I think maybe you were going to Eagle or Traders Point or something, and I was going to I-Town. And I think you went with me to I-Town, and then we ended up going to breakfast and whatnot. And I remember the conversation we had. It was kind of us kind of catching up with life and all that kind of stuff. And you know, point blank just asked me, said, what does life look like without football? Like, you know, and I was like, I can't imagine life without football, and football's everything to me. And again, my priorities at the time were just so messed up. And, you know, we had that conversation, and the next day I get cut from the Colts. And this is kind of where that spiral on my end starts to happen. I'm like, just abruptly get sideswiped. I'm released from the team. I'm kind of in shock. You know, I'm, you know, kind of depressed and just all of these different emotions that was going through my head. But you were like one of the first person, you know, my phone was obviously going crazy, and you called me immediately because you heard it from somebody or on the news or whatever. And you were one of the first people to reach out to see if I was okay. And there's no coincidence that we had that conversation about what does life look like without football the day before this happened. And so at the time, I, you know, it kind of just went over my head, but looking back, I'm like, you were there for me, you know, whether I knew it or not. And
we were still, like, just so people know, we were not together.
No,
we were broken up. We just happened to randomly, like,
just
catch up. And
and so you were there in that moment. And again, we don't talk for a while. I'm going through I'm going in the training mode. I'm getting, you know, preparing for what's to come, and, you know, kind of holding on to hope, and just kind of in a weird, funky, you know, strange part of my life. I went from feeling like I had everything to nothing, you know. And then later that summer, I get picked up to Jacksonville, and that's when I go to Jacksonville for the season. And in that moment, I've talked about this on the podcast before, but, you know, Jacksonville was my desert season, meaning I went somewhere where I never wanted to go. God took me to the least expected place. I had no friends, I had no family. I'm living alone in a whole new environment, new team. And I just felt like I was living in solitude. But like you were talking about, kind of feeling alone, and all you had was God to lean on, like that was me. And it was shortly after I signed in Jacksonville where you started, you know, falling on my heart and my mind quite a bit, because you never reached out to me to wish me luck or congratulate me about being signed to the team.
And I think because at this point, when you were going into your desert season, I was coming out of mine, and I was like, you know what, I can now stand on my own 2 feet.
Yeah.
I was like able to see my own value and worth, and just feel so incredibly loved, like just through the eyes of God, that it took me a year to get there. So once I got there, I felt like I'm moving, I'm going, like there's no reason to look back. Like why look back? And it wasn't like I had hard feelings towards you. It was just like
What's the point?
I'm good now.
Yeah,
I'm so good.
Yeah.
So I didn't want to hinder that. And so my life like moved on, and it began to flourish, you know?
Yeah. And I was enjoying football. I was loving where I was at, but every time I'd come home, like I was just like miserable. I was lonely. I was just like borderline depressed. Maybe I was in a state of depression. I was just, you know, I was very uncomfortable. And, you know, I talk about me never wanting to go home after practice because I just had no one to go home to, no one to talk to. I had video games, I had the internet, I had the beautiful beach to look at, but nothing could ever like really make me happy, you know? And that's why I just lingered around the locker room randomly, like talking to guys and doing an extra workout or staying for more treatment, just because I just didn't want to go home. And I remember one day, I think it was like a Sunday morning, we had the day off. This is like during training camp. And I was like, I'm going to reach out to Bree just to see how you're doing. This is a few weeks after I had, you know, been out there and still haven't heard from you. And I was literally about to call or text you, and I'm like, no, I'll just leave it, let it be. And then I'm on Instagram one day, and you had posted a picture of the guy you were dating.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my gosh, like my heart sunk. Like I was just like, dude, I was rattled. I was so rattled. And I'm like, all right, I kind of gave it some time to like just sink in a little bit. I'm like, all right, she seems happy, awesome. But like it really, really hurt, you know? And then I started talking about you to my parents a little bit more and praying on it. And I was journaling about you and us and what happened and just kind of the state I was in. And I think I just was like, all right, I'm going to reach out to your parents.
Yeah.
And, I was so nervous. I reached out to your mom and maybe I just texted her and just say, if you have time to talk, I would love to talk, And
My parents were still Team Matt at this point.
yeah, well, I didn't know that. I think for me, speaking to them and getting a gauge of kind of where I stood and where you were at would kind of give me a good indication of like, all right, is this like even a possibility or should I just kick rocks and beat it, right? And I was nervous to talk to your mom, because I texted her and I said, can we talk? And she was like, yeah, let's chat tonight or whatever. And we talked that night and my heart is pounding through my chest and I'm just, kind of just, hey, Bree's, dating somebody now, but this is how I feel, this is where I stand. And your mom was like, I've been praying for the day that you would come back after Bree, and I was like, did not expect to hear that. I was expecting her to say, kick rocks, dude, peace out.
I didn't expect it either, but.
So we don't need to go into all the details about that, but that was just like the seed that needed to be planted in my heart to like, it was like a God sign, like, hey, like, maybe you need to pursue Bree. And for the next several months, you and I went back and forth and it was really, really hard because you were in a, healthy relationship. You were happy. You were flourishing, like you said. You generally had a great interest in this guy. I was no longer like on the radar or on your heart. I was like, quite frankly, like pissing you off, like calling and texting and checking up on you and sending you cheesy cards and gifts
flowers
and stuff.
And journal and coffee and.
Yeah, I was desperate.
Yeah, but you were in pursuit.
I was.
That's what every woman deserves. And looking back now, I'm like, every single female deserves to have a guy pursue them like this.
Yeah, and I was, like I said, full court press on you. And I was like, I know you're in a relationship, but before this relationship she's in goes any further, I need to like, hey, like, let her know where my heart is. And for several months, it was a struggle. And then, late in the season, I get hurt. I dislocate my shoulder. I have to have surgery. I go in IR, meaning I'm done for the year. I decided to go back to Indianapolis to get surgery. And, my mind is like, I get to go back home, back to my comfort zone around some family and friends, and then also be close to Bree. That's the way I saw it. I was like, no one's going to convince me to get surgery here in Jacksonville and stay here in rehab. I'm going home. Yeah. And I got my surgery, every now and then you'd be nice and just check up on me, but I think over time, and this is a span of like at least 6 months.
Yeah.
From the day that I reached out to you to the time that you really maybe.
Well, my relationship I was in ended.
Yeah.
So again, another feeling of like, someone walked out on me and left me and I was just like so confused, you know what I mean? And it was in that moment, then that's when you were back in town for surgery and you were starting to like just continue to like show up and like be present and like pursue me and like just still express your love. Like you're like, I've messed up, I love you. Yeah. And it was in like those days that I was praying like on my knees, God, like the other guy I was with, if he's not meant to be my life, and maybe it is something I need to see in Matt, like take the other guy away and just keep Matt. Like I was very,
you were trusting in God to
I was very
provide
specific.
That,
I was very specific, like in that prayer and in that moment. And I prayed that over and over and over. And sure enough, the guy I was dating, like literally it was like just gone, like done, clean, wash his hands of me, just done. And it was you, like you were still there. But I will say, and this is where I think the turning point is in this relationship that we have now is, so to kind of move this story along to the second time we dated to the first time we dated, we have like a 2-part relationship. The first time we dated, we lived in sin. We were not, our relationship was nowhere near like centered around God. Yeah. Even as individuals, I don't think necessarily we were rooted in our faith.
We weren't living in conviction, and we were very much in a physical and, you know, like a more like romantic type
Yeah.
relationship where
Which is,
it would-
I mean, so easy to get caught
we
up
never
in
talked about it really.
nowadays. Yeah.
No.
And
Never went to church together. Never
went to
prayed
church,
together.
no.
Never really, put our foot down as far as like, hey, like we need to do this the right way.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, and I think what it took was both of us being our desert seasons. You know, we kind of both shared, like, we each had our season of like literally rock bottom where I was literally on my knees, like just crying, like hands open, like surrendering to God. And it took to be in that moment to build that relationship with the Lord, to stand on our own 2 feet, to gain the confidence that we had just as individuals. So when we did come back together, it was like the first things we were doing was, hey, let's meet at church on Sunday. Like that was one of the first things we did.
Yeah, because we didn't hang out very, very much, like
No,
one-on-one
I was
alone.
I
Yeah,
still had
like,
a wall built up.
yeah.
So I was still trying to push you away, but it was
Yeah.
like, I just I kept feeling this like nudge of like, just invite him to church.
Yeah.
Invite him to brunch.
Yeah.
Invite him for coffee. And like, that's what we did. We just like, were very like, met, we did workouts together, we went to the gym together, but we never once like just hung out, just the two of us alone in that intimate
There was nothing.
setting.
There's no physical.
No,
nothing.
I didn't like try to hold your hand or kiss you
No.
or anything it was over 6 months. I
Yeah.
remember.
We even spent New Year's Eve together. You didn't even kiss me
No.
on New Year's.
No.
Like, dang. I was
Well,
like,
the part of me like had this wall built up, and
No,
then
I
another
know.
part of me was I had gotten rebaptized
that summer.
that summer.
Yeah.
So like when we were not together, I was rebaptized, and in that moment was when I decided like, okay, like I'm not going to be intimate until I'm married to someone, and like I stood to that.
Oh yeah. And to be
And I made
honest,
that clear with you. I said, like,
Yeah.
look, like, we can try to date or whatever you want to do, but listen, this is these are my boundaries. And I think that was the most important thing. I think for anybody out there listening that maybe feels this struggle or feels convicted in this, I'm not here to like preach on this or teach on this. But what we did, I think, was we built a strong foundation around God, around a friendship, and we waited 2.5 years until we got
well,
married.
to be fair to you and to be fair and honest, to our listeners, I struggled a lot though.
Yes.
I
don't want to make it sound like, oh, this was easy
Yeah,
peasy.
you were your love language is the
Quality time.
the quality time and the words of affirmation, and mine is like 100% physical. That's my love language, and I think most men are like that. And for me not to have that sense of physical connection with you, even though I knew it was the right thing to do, even though I respected you so much for it, I knew this is the best thing for our relationship, and it was what God, wants us to do. I struggled, man. I was
You did.
I got so angry that we wouldn't.
You would get mad at me, but
Yeah.
I think like what I would encourage someone, like, so let's say someone is dealing with this in a relationship, I think the biggest thing that helped each of us individually was getting plugged into a small group within our church. Like
Oh, yeah.
I met with a group of women every night or once a week, and just had them, I felt comfortable to open up over time and express to them like what we were going through in a couple, and just having them pray over me. And then I noticed when you joined a men's group through Traders Point, over time you felt comfortable to open up and just share your struggle in this. And it was like they were allowed to say like, hey, you know what, me too, I dealt with that. And then you realize I'm not alone. Like I'm not the only guy on this earth that is dealing with
Well, it wasn't
this.
even just that. It was the fact that like other men who went through that and saw the beauty in, abstinence and waiting, and how much more powerful and impactful it was on the relationship to wait till after they're married.
Mm-hmm.
Like those little like nuggets of encouragement like pushed me to like stay firm in
Yes.
that faith and belief. Like, hey, like this is just very, very, very temporary in the grand scheme of life and our marriage. Like this is just a very,
Like,
very small
we
time.
wouldn't have been able to do this alone. I think
Oh,
hands
yeah,
down, like
yeah.
anybody struggling or feeling convicted in this topic in the relationship, I think like the most important thing is to, get
counseling.
connected,
Yeah,
whether it's counseling, get connected in a group, surround yourself with like-minded couples, because I think that was another thing.
Or older, wise couples who have
that can pour into you. But that
been
was another
married
thing
for
is
20, 30 years.
we had couples and like friends that were Christians, and then we have some that aren't, and there's nothing wrong. I mean, nothing wrong with either one. However, we noticed when we were around the other couples that were Christians and had the same beliefs and values as us, for one, we left feeling, anytime we left them, we felt filled and encouraged and like, we can do this. And then, you know, being around others, it kind of was like they were questioning, like, wait, why are you guys waiting? Are you crazy?
Make sense. Yeah.
They didn't understand the value. So I think that's like another point that I would encourage people is like, find those like-minded couples and friends that you can surround yourself with to pray you along and encourage you.
Well, even when you're around friends or family who don't necessarily agree or believe in what you're trying to accomplish in your relationship, just being bold in faith and like putting your foot down and just like not being ashamed of what you and your, you know, girlfriend or, you know, or your fiance are doing at the time, because you know in your heart it's the right thing to do.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people, especially in today's society, get embarrassed or think that, you know, they have to have sex to, you know, make a relationship work and all this kind of stuff. And, you know, it couldn't be further from the truth, because, you know, we know that waiting was the greatest thing that we could have done for our, because it set.
I mean, now granted, we had been together before,
but I would
still.
But I would also argue that may have made it even more hard, especially for me, to know what it's like to be physical with you, and then a couple years later down the road, like having nothing.
Yeah.
I felt like, man, I was just like, I was being tempted like even more, because I knew what it was like.
Yeah.
And so, those are the struggles. I mean, there was times where I just go to bed upset at you for not even like, I feel like, not even acknowledge me. I'm just like this person,
like, nope.
And you just like shut me down and turn me down, and I was just like, felt rejected over and over and over again. It was like, gosh dang, and it just really pissed me off quite a bit.
Yeah. But I think like, you know, we got counseling from Pastor Aaron at Traders Point, and like just being encouraged, you know, to not live together, because that's just major temptation, and just like be very specific about setting boundaries around our relationship. Like whether that's, hey, like at 10 o'clock p.m., like I go home, we go our separate ways, like, see, I know it sounds silly, like when I say it out loud and I share that with other people, but truthfully, it helps. And I think just being very clear on setting boundaries in your relationship.
And then also being very, very, as the guy, being transparent with like my struggle with like pornography, and like being very vocal and open and honest about that in the men's group, and also with you too. Like
that was hard.
My like skin would cringe when you'd ask me like, have you looked at anything, you know, pornographic in the last week? And I'm like, you'd like just catch me stumbling. And but you like, you spoke life into like, if I ever got tempted to like look at that stuff, like I knew that conviction just hit me even harder.
Yeah, because I would ask.
Yeah, you would ask. And
then you couldn't lie.
Yeah, and I was like, well, I probably did lie in the moment. Like, no, you know? And so, I mean, those are just real struggles that most couples go through, you know, while they're dating and engaged. And, you know, and we didn't force our wedding either. We were like almost a full year.
A lot of couples will get married within like 6 months, you know.
Yeah, just to speed up the process, you know.
Well, we were kind of planning around football season. So we had a couple years. I mean, we were engaged for over a year before we got married.
But those 10 months of, you know, 10 to 11 months of us being engaged, like we sought some really, really good counseling, and, you know, Pastor Aaron Brockett, you know, really helped us. He ended up marrying us, which is even better. But like Bree said, just surrounding yourself with like just really deep-rooted, you know, believers who know exactly what you're going through, young couples who are currently in it with you, or even the wise counselors that we saw, you know, people that are in their 60s and 70s who had been married for 40 years. Like, the experience they had is just so priceless, and I encourage you guys to, you know, go through the premarital account, but like get like biblical premarital counseling. Don't just go to any counselor out there, because some of it's like could be very toxic.
Well, and I don't know, maybe we can share a link, but so we still like tune into our home church back in Indy of Traders Point, and Aaron just this past Sunday, he did a whole sermon on basically
Sex
sex.
It's not taboo to talk about anymore.
Well, and like just around the gift of it and how it's sacred for a marriage and like God intended it to be something that's enjoyable and all the things and it's good. But again,
this is where it goes wrong when you do it in these kind of situations.
So maybe we can like attach the link or something to this podcast for people to listen if this is something that relates to you. Or I know he shared like even if you're a parent and you have teenage kids, like it's so important. My hope is that we will preach this to True, and any of our other future kids. But maybe we can. Yeah, we will add that.
And we're kind of getting to that point now where we're now getting back into dating. This is like 2018, so about 4 years ago. And before we go any further, because we want to make this kind of a 2-part series, we want to talk about how we met, dating life, the breakup, the struggles, leading into our engagement. So the next time Bree and I will sit down, we'll talk about engagement and life in the NFL and getting married and pregnancy and
I have a lot. I have a lot to share.
A quarantine honeymoon.
Yeah.
Getting married during the pandemic, and just being a stay-at-home mom, and for me, for the most part, being a stay-at-home dad, and what that dynamic's like for you and I. But I wanted to cut us off there. We're gonna go to a couple questions that people had asked on our Instagram or Twitter. But do you want to start with the first one? Well, you pick one, I'll pick one.
Yeah. Are you gonna go or am I gonna go?
You go first.
Okay. Well, a lot of people asked was faith in dating, and I feel like hopefully we covered that, in a broad spectrum.
Yeah.
What do you love most about one another? I think for me, there's, a whole list of things that I just freaking love about Matt. Like, I could create a whole list. I'll save that for my Father's Day post on Instagram. But something that, like, really just every time we do this, it, like, sticks out to me. And I'm just so, so, so grateful for this trait is, and again, like, this was not you the first time we dated. This is, like, Matt 2.0 the second time we dated. And now as a husband is you initiate us praying together every night. Mm-hmm. Like
not every night, but
just about every night. And like, just not that the pressure's on you to like lead our household and to have that responsibility, but like you do. And I don't even ask. You just naturally like pray like around dinner time, whether it's a short prayer, a long prayer. We have, if I tell someone I'm going to pray for them, like I'll mention it to him and he prays for them in that moment. Like, it's just, I love it, and I can't wait for True and, hopefully our future babies to, like, recognize that in you and just having our house built on that. And, like, I notice every morning even if there's chaos going on, like True running around, Franklin going crazy, whatever's going on, you have your Bible open and you're reading the Bible and you're journaling every single day, no matter what. And I just admire that about you.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that, babe. I think for me, at least at the Matt 2.0, right? Like, obviously a lot of maturity and growth has happened in the past, 4 or 5 years, whatever. And my spiritual growth and just being, like you said, a leader of the household and leading our marriage and leading our family and leading our daughter. And it really is important. The more I've matured in this, I just come to realize like, wow, like, the significance of a man's role in a marriage and in parenting is not to diminish the role of you as the wife and mom, but it's just so important for us to like be that spiritual leader. And you lead us spiritually too, in other ways, or whether you know it or not. Mm-hmm. I think your calmness and your kindness and just you're kind of like the glue that keeps the chaos together. Whereas I'm like, I know you have a lot of anxiety, but I feel like you can still manage that very, very well, and you calm me down, and I know we kind of calm each other down in different ways. But, it's important to like, pray over our household and pray over you and True. And, and I think the cool thing is about, looking back, I was always get embarrassed about like praying, like whether we go out to dinner or in public settings. And it couldn't be a more better like opportunity for us as a godly couple just to simply pray at dinner and who knows, maybe somebody watching or glancing, like maybe they get encouraged by that, because I know for me, when somebody would ask me to pray at a restaurant, I'd get so embarrassed and not want to do it.
Yeah.
And I think now just kind of being open and bold in our faith, like, has really helped us. So I appreciate that, babe. So the most thing I love about you, and I'm going to kind of retouch on it again, is just the fact that like you have like this peace, loving kindness, like aura to you. And you put a lot of people before yourself, where I feel like I put myself before our family sometimes, our marriage, because like I'm just like always trying to chase a dream and chase a goal and train, and I have all these aspirations and I want to do this, that, and the other, and that drives you crazy. But I'm just wired that way. Whereas you kind of take a step back, you say, all right, where are the priorities and where do we need to, exhaust our energy? And you always remind me about being present in the moment. You always remind me about being a husband and father first. You always, or, second to our faith, and being, a believer and a Christian man. And, but you just always encourage me. And I know sometimes you're raw and true with me. You call me out on my BS. You call me out on my sin. You call me out on when I'm wrong.
In a loving way, of course.
No, in a loving way. But I respond sometimes with anger and frustration because you hit me with the truth hard.
Yep.
The hardest, because you're the one I love most, right? And so I think I love that the most about you. You're just the yin to my yang, right?
Yep.
I mean, and you get me, and sometimes I annoy you with my quirkiness, and like I said, running around the house naked at 3 a.m. to go grab a bottle. But that's what I love about you most. You're like the glue that keeps the chaos together. And sometimes that chaos is spread wide and far, and sometimes it's manageable, especially with little True Bear who's crawling up above us right now. We'll go on to another question. Let's go. This is a good one. This is from Twitter. It's kind of a 3-part question. And the first one is, how have you managed to prioritize marriage over everything else? Second part, what boundaries did you put in place to maintain a Christ-centered relationship? We've already talked about that a little bit during dating. Mm-hmm. Third part was, who's the type A and who's the it's in God's hands type? How have you managed to identify what matters? Well, I would say that I'm probably the type A.
I don't know.
You don't think so? But it's weird, because I think we're both type A in different ways.
Yeah, we are. We're like literally like.
Like, I'm very outgoing and like.
Like this is your thing, talking on a podcast. This is
very
like,
casual. Yeah, this is harder for you.
This is hard for me.
But you are type A to a T when it comes to keeping the house like organized and clean, and like we have a calendar. And I was like, a calendar? What? We're writing our schedule on a calendar now, and all of our appointments. Like, it's just, you're structured way different than I am, where I can just go with the flow, and I can have a mess over here, a mess over there, and like eventually I'll get to it and I'll clean up.
Your messy piles, you know exactly what they are.
Yeah. But you don't like the mess.
Nope.
Yeah. So I think we're type A in different ways. And the second part to that was, how have you managed to identify what matters? Or how have you managed to identify what matters?
I think everybody, I think for us, we experience like, the peaks and valleys of just life. And I think when you're in a valley, whether it's as an individual, like you've had a valley separate from mine, and we've also had a valley like just as a couple. Yeah. And I think when you're in that valley, you realize in that moment, like, your top few priorities. Yeah. Like, what is it that truly, like, this house could be gone, you could lose a job, you cannot play ever again, I could be without a job. Yeah. But that most important thing that's going to matter is you and True. Yeah. And Franklin, of course.
Our little doggy, crazy doggy.
I think for me, like, just realizing, like, And I think after already going, like we shared, after the breakup, we each had our own like desert season. I think when I was in that desert season is when I realized like God reveals to you what truly matters, and then you hold on to that, like, because you're gonna fall into another desert season.
Yeah.
Like life isn't always gonna be climbing up this like mountain top, you know, like it's ebbs and flows 24/7, and there's gonna be another storm coming.
Oh yeah.
Constantly. And I will say, like, in those storms, this is like a side note, but I've always told people, like, I almost look forward to having that next storm of like life, because it's in that moment is when I grow closer to God. Like my relationship with the Lord just,
Oh, certainly. Yeah.
I mean, flourishes, you know,
Yeah.
until I come out of that storm. And then like you're climbing up your peak.
It's not necessarily that you're excited, or excited is probably not the right
Not the
word,
right
but
word.
more aware that a storm is going to come. It's just your faith.
Yeah.
You know that God is going to get us through. It may take a day, it may take a year. You may have to, lose a few things along the way. But, at the end of the day, God is good, and God is very, very faithful. And I think for us, just not being oblivious to the fact that, like, storms are going to come. It's not, if, but when, right?
Yeah.
And just building everything, again, like on solid rock. And that comes with our marriage, how we raise in true, how we bring parents, how, we treat others, and just bracing ourselves for when that comes, and so like staying ready, right?
Yeah.
And we can talk about like what stay ready means to you and I, like from a marriage standpoint and as parents and whatnot. So
I just want to touch on one more thing
Yeah.
before something I wish I would have touched on earlier. I remember in my moment of like that singleness, that year and a half that we were not together, I like dove straight into all kinds of books. So if anybody needs book recommendations, let me know.
yeah, Bree has about 100 books that people have sent her from this book club that she has not cracked once. I'm like, you got a new book?
But
Another one? Are you saying another book?
I do love to read.
Gosh.
I do, but it's like
Yeah,
I don't
know.
have time. True.
Yeah.
And that's a bad excuse, because when she goes to bed, then that's my perfect opportunity to like read a book. But anyways,
Or binge watch your.
Or last
Gosh.
But anyways, I did read a book, and it was like, I don't remember specifics. I'm still laughing.
What, the Real Housewives thing? Because it's even gone as far as her laying in bed watching it from her iPhone with her ear pods on. That's how addicted she is.
Okay, but it's like good drama.
Okay.
Okay.
It's the mess that you wish you lived in.
Yeah.
Gosh. So what was the book that you're talking about?
So I don't remember the exact book,
Okay.
but it shared, like, it expressed like how to use your, like, that season of singleness. So if there's any, like, I know people out there that might just be like, I'm stuck in this like season of singleness, and I just feel like he's skipped over me. He's on to the next person, and he's just never going to come back to me. And there was a point in a book, and it just shared like God is using your season of singleness. And I don't know, there's like obviously more with that, but I think just like I would just encourage anyone that, I know it's easier said than done, but like I would just encourage you to just believe that God is working. He is moving. He has not forgotten about you. It might feel like it's months, years, whatever that looks like, because I know I felt that way.
Yeah.
And I just want to encourage, like, allow God to use this season of singleness for his good. And that could look like maybe something with your career. Maybe it's building, other relationships. Maybe it's like within your family. I don't know, but God will use this season of singleness. And I just don't want anybody to like feel discouraged.
Yeah. Well, in part
with
2,
that.
we'll bring that title of the book.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to dig through my...
We're gonna have to go in the massive library that we
Yeah.
have down here with her
Yes.
boxes of books, and we'll find
I have
that
a
one.
lot.
Yeah. So thank you so much for tuning in. I hope that this part 1 of 2 series, we'll call it, was awesome for you to hear, and it's great to sit down with you, because I think for the longest time we've had so many, like, we've been excited to kind of like start sharing our testimony, our journey with others. And I know we've had like small little groups where we've been able to do that, but now on the platform to where we can literally anyone can listen. I think it's been awesome. And you've been my best guest so far, for many reasons. You're just awesome. You did so great. So we look forward to sharing part 2 here in the next coming weeks and talking about, what do you want to talk about next?
I have so much I can share on pregnancy, postpartum. Oh my goodness, being a mom.
Well, I can't share that, but we'll talk about the engagement.
Okay, we can talk
planning the engagement, football, moving, the uncertainty.
When we get that phone call and like, it's just, that's chaos.
The chaos, but the beauty in it all is going to a new place and being able to meet new people and just share in the journey. And on my end, as a dad, talking about like the things I struggled with, like just my role as a dad. I didn't know what to do. There's no playbook, there's no script. I mean, obviously there's people that give you little nuggets of wisdom, but you don't know until you're in the chaos, you know. And we could talk about our COVID delivery and how crazy that was, and then we obviously talk about and brag a little bit about our beautiful true bear that we got. And being a girl dad's awesome. So we're excited to share all that and more with you guys on part 2 of the series. So thanks for tuning in. We'll see you later.
Thank you.
I love you, babe. Thank you for tuning in to Stay Ready, the podcast. If you like today's episode, please comment below, like, and subscribe to our channel. I appreciate you all. We'll see you next time, and stay ready.